doing today?
Yeah.
My name's Ashley Gerich. I'm running for LD 30 State Senate for Arizona. I know a lot of people in the crowd today, and I've been in this fight for quite some time. And we talked about all of the things that are important to us and why we're running. And there's lots of things that come to my mind, and I've always stated that it's for my kids. I don't want to leave them in a worse place than where they began. And I don't want them to think that I did nothing about it. Because at the end of the day, when you have 5 kids, and you're raising those 5 kids, and you're working every single day to make sure that they have an amazing life with morals and values and not giving up, that's exactly what you have to do. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. I started in politics in probably 2018. I went to the Mohave County Fairgrounds, and I met a couple wonderful people at the GOP booth, and I said straight up, I said, I want to run for county supervisor. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. I just knew that I wanted to run for county supervisor because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to do a civic duty, and I wanted to do it well. Well, then I get transferred over to Bullhead City, and I meet this wonderful woman, God rest her soul, Royanne Ortiz. And she took me in and she showed me the ropes, but you know what she told me? She says, Ashley, you need to start with city council. And I thought, I don't want to run for city council. That's not something I'm passionate about. I want to run and I want to be able to make a difference in the county. I've been in Bullhead City since 1994, and I've grown up here. I'm 34 years old now. So I was reluctant, but then I decided to go meet with some people, and you know, I was essentially told that my reason, come back when I have a better reason. And I thought, well, I think bridging the gap between the elderly and the young is the most important reason, because without the young, the Republican Party does not exist.
Sure.
Now, what that meant was I had to go back to the drawing board. And unfortunately, what happened after that was the pandemic, or scamdemic, or however you want to look at it. It was trash. I had to homeschool 5 children. Could you imagine what that's like? I had 5 computers lined up on the bar of my home, and while I'm making lunch, we're sitting there talking about arithmetic. But what I learned during that time was what they were being taught in the schools. And I thought, we need to make a difference. The parents should know what's going on with their children. They should know that their children are being taught that it's okay to not know your identity, to be gender specific, to just complete indoctrination, and I was appalled. And at that time, I also, along with homeschooling 5 children, I was a teacher for history, psychology to success, and I also taught teenagers how to kind of go into the life of being a teenager in Montessori Preparatory Academy in Fort Mohave, Arizona. So I had way more than 5 students, but it was okay. We made it through. And what I decided at that point was I needed to make a difference. And so I said, you know, I'm not even going to worry about city council. I got to go get these schools open. I got to make sure that my kids can go back to school and that they're not taught trash every single day of their lives, where they come home and they're questioning their individuality and who they are. So that's what I did. I ran as a write-in candidate, and the only way people recognize me is I said, you know, my last name's spelled get rich without the T. And fortunately for me, that's stuck to this day. I see a lot of people, they're like, hey, get rich without the T. And it's really nice to see that people remember that you're trying to make a difference. But what I've done in that time is we brought concealed carry to our schools. We have abolished our relationship with the ASBA, which is the Arizona School Board Association. They're a crazy left-wing lobbyist. I have asked asked for males and females not to be allowed in other male or female bathrooms, or likewise in male or female sports. And we have that as a policy now. Boys cannot go in the girls' bathroom, and girls cannot go in the boys' bathroom, and boys cannot go in the girls' bathroom. And you know why? It's because it's wrong and it makes people feel uncomfortable. And if they feel uncomfortable enough to go in and use the boys' or girls' bathroom, they can go to the nurse's office. So that's where they go. Anyway, so during this time, I was a vice chair of Mohave County Republican Central Committee. And what I learned during that time was that we need real change. That it's always the same players, it's always the same people, it's always everybody endorsing their friends or people that have been in the game for quite some time, probably before I was even, a high school graduate, which I was actually a high school dropout. So I'm going to go back to that for a second. So everybody's like looking at me, a high school dropout. Well, what I did was I was 18 years old and I had 2 children at that time. I have 4 children of my own, and I have a stepdaughter that I've raised since she was 7 years old. After dropping out of high school with 2 children, I decided to go and get my GED. Sometime after that, I was a business owner. I've owned 9 businesses in this city, in Bullhead City anyways, and Port Mohave. And I decided that dog grooming, which I owned a dog salon, was very tough and very time-consuming and a lot of work. But you know what I did every single day? I took those kids to work with me, and I owned that business, and I ran that business, and I, breastfed 2 kids at the same time. So I'll tell you what, it is not easy, but I did it. And but when I decided that it was too hard to do that, I went back to school. I went and I attended ASU of Lake Havasu City. I got my Bachelor's of Arts in Organizational Leadership, and that's actually where I found my love for politics. My first, and it's funny because Jennifer Esposito's here, but my first debate I went to, or forum I went to, was in Lake Havasu, and Leo Biasucci and Jennifer Esposito were running against each other. And I thought, wow, if they're going to make real change, I want to make real change. But what I realized is that sometimes it's just not about what people say, it's about what people do. Anyways, after getting my bachelor's of in organizational leadership, I wanted to be a lawyer. I've wanted to be a lawyer for a long time, since my mother passed away, and that was over 10 years ago. I went to law school, and in that time I didn't miss a baseball game. I didn't miss practice. I, pretty much ran myself ragged. But in all that hard work, I became a lawyer. And I studied the law. I interpreted the law. And during that time, I was the secretary and vice president of the Veterans Association, where we helped veterans get in and be able to get law degrees and help them not have to pay for the admissions process and help them get reimbursed for their funds to pay for college. And I also studied a lot. And in that time, I also volunteered a lot. I did 150 hours of pro bono work. And in that time, which most of us don't know, but in the Midwest, in Minnesota, they actually have CC&Rs, which are covenants and restrictions on your property, where Black people still couldn't own land. I went through and I did over 50 hours of work, getting every single one of those restrictions and covenants identified and omitted. And I went to onto SCOTUS notes, which essentially allowed me to understand exactly what goes through SCOTUS's mind when they're doing, God knows what they're doing, because sometimes they make really stupid decisions. But that being said, I worked a lot in making sure that I knew and understood and could write the law. And that's exactly what we're going to the legislator for. We can talk about relationships, but when it's the same old people in the same old relationship, what happens then? There's no change. There's nothing getting done. We've cried about the election systems for however long. We've cried about all of these things, which I'll talk about later when we talk about issues and we get questions, but I'll tell you, it's time for change and it's time to get stuff done. And I'm not going to make it based on relationships. or getting people that I know. But anyways, not to ramble on, my name's Ashley Gerich. I'm running for LD30, Arizona State Senate. Thank you.
We can move on to other things.
Amen. We're going to win the Senate race.
Yep, sir.
We're going to win the Senate race. Yeah.